Good night. I've moved from the computer because I'm going to be sharing more of the Exorcist files. I'm going to be doing chapter 5 by Father Carlos Martins. He's the host of the Exorcist Files podcast, so it's already out there. I've done up to this chapter. It's true stories about the reality of evil and how to defeat it. And the foreword on the book, which you can buy from Amazon or any good bookshop, is by Cardinal Raymond Burke. Father Carlos Martins fights the devil every day. Demon possession is his speciality. Freedom is his goal for the victims. The Exorcist Files is about how the devil gets in and how to get him out again. In the Exorcist Files, Father Carlos Martins introduces us to the 2,000-year-old Catholic ministry of exorcism by sharing his most jaw-dropping real-life experiences with demonic activity and the prayers and rituals he uses to bring freedom to its victims. As one of the world's most sought-after experts on the supernatural, Father Martins explains how evil looks for any opening in our lives, from witchcraft and pagan practices to pornography use and even emotional trauma, to cause us pain and destruction. He challenges conventional thinking and offers a sobering look at the spiritual dangers lurking in those modern behaviors that often disguise themselves as harmless, calling us to vigilance and spiritual fortitude. He emphasizes the importance of religious literacy and practice as guides in a world where the line between the divine and the demonic is increasingly blurred. Through compelling storytelling, coupled with theology and detailed analysis, this eye-opening book invites believers and the spiritually curious to explore, question, and deepen our understanding of the hidden threats lurking in our midst, so that we can remain safe against the power of evil and walk confidently in faith. Father Carlos Martins' exorcism ministry has made him one of the most renowned experts in demonic activity. He was once an atheist. Martins discovered Jesus Christ as an undergraduate, now a Catholic priest. He is also an expert on Catholic saints and their relics. He is the director of Treasures of the Church, a Vatican-sponsored evangelization ministry that uses the relics of the saints to communicate the presence of the living God all over the world. There is a lot of testimonies at the front of the book. I will put it, as I usually do, on the description, and I won't read out all those names. It's going to waste time. We are on Sunday, the 16th of February 2025. I've already recorded the Mass readings for the day, and I thought I would actually make some time to continue reading this book. ISBN 978-139-9818-902. Marilis in vita mea micantibus. There is a foreword by the Cardinal, but as it is quite long, I'll record first, and if this is a short chapter, chapter 5, I might consider doing the foreword afterwards, but I'm not going to waste your time doing it now. It was Raymond Leo Cardinal Burt, May the 18th, 2023, on the solemnity of the Ascension of our Lord Jesus Christ. It's a very good foreword, but I would rather, because it's, I suppose it's past 9:30 p.m. at night, so I will start on the next chapter. I'm sorry I'm not sitting at the computer, but I've done too much at the computer today, so I'm going to just be more comfortable. An Exorcism Session, Chapter 5, from page 113 to page 130. The case of the disappearing 8th grader. "Get away from me, you pervert, you filthy priest," Lena screamed as I went to sit in the chair next to her. Lena was 13 years old. The accusations of impropriety her demon was screaming at me are why exorcists have witnesses present when they work with minors. Aside from fulfilling their assigned tasks, my team members also serve as witnesses. I also have at least 2 female team members also serve as witnesses, and they're present to ensure credibility should accusations of misconduct be levelled against me, and they always are usually, just because the devil likes to do that sort of thing. The fact that an exorcist, I insist that at least 2 family members be present when I exorcise a minor, and 1 family member must be a female. The fact that an exorcist has a team of witnesses and a policy requiring the presence of family members would speak loudly in a legal case regarding his credibility and professionalism. Demons are cunning, and an exorcist needs to protect himself from the false accusations they would be happy to engineer against him. The demons are clever. They want to take down the exorcists and all the priests. Demons can convince their victim that the priest has done something inappropriate by planting false memories or creating bogus mental images. "Get away from me, you pervert," Lena screamed again. The journey that landed Lena in my office started with an argument with her mother, Rita, over her 8th grade class photo. Lena was Rita's only child, and her mother had a tradition of hanging her class photos in the hallway of their home. After getting a print elegantly framed, she would indicate where Lena was in the picture with loving, though intentionally loud and gaudy scrapbook decorations. It was a tradition that Rita started when her daughter was a child. But when Lena's latest class photo arrived in the mail, Rita was angry that her daughter was not in the picture. Aside from spoiling her tradition of having the class photos in the hallway, she had purchased Lena a new dress for the occasion. When confronted, Lena insisted she had been present at the photo shoot. However, when she looked at the picture, she was as surprised as her mother to find herself missing. Lena remembered where she had been standing at the picture taking, but there was an empty gap at that spot. Rita accused her daughter of skipping school and demanded to know where she had been. Lena indignantly exploded in response to her mother's accusation. Lena had never felt close to her mother. She found her mother overbearing, bossy, and self-centered. She worried about things like money, safety, and keeping things under her control. When Lena was 10 years old, her father, Dave, left her mother. 2 years later, Rita married Mike, whom Lena detested, finding him too much like her mother. Lena dearly missed her father and worshipped his memory. He was fun, spontaneous, and greeted her at her bedside each morning. He had taken Lena on long walks, wrote her poetry, sang to her while playing his guitar, and stayed up late talking with her. The day he left was the worst day of her life. He left a note saying he was going to pursue a singing career on the West Coast and that he would come back for her. Lena believed his leaving was caused by her mother's contrariness and was therefore her fault. Rita loved her daughter, but found her impossible to please. When Dave abandoned them, she had mixed feelings. On the one hand, Rita had never loved him and was free to find someone else. On the other, Dave had been Lena's full-time babysitter. Rita and Dave had dated briefly during their sophomore year in college. When Rita got pregnant, they moved in together, but never married. Rita dropped out of school after Lena was born. Dave stayed in school another semester before dropping out himself. He never held a job, nor did he ever look for one. In all the years they were together, Rita was the breadwinner. Dave was the epitome of laziness in her eyes. He strummed his guitar all day, writing songs that would never bring in any income. Ever the dreamer, he fantasized about a music career that would never happen. Besides watching Lena, the only initiative Dave ever showed was growing marijuana in the basement, which he smoked throughout the day in the attic. After he left, Rita heard from him only once. He emailed asking for a $500 loan to get an apartment. He also asked her to tell Lena he loved her, though he never called to tell her himself. After Dave left, Lena lived as a shell of the happy child she had once been. For a year she struggled to eat and sleep and cried frequently. She never called her friends any more, said nothing in class, and avoided her mother, shutting herself inside her room whenever she was home. Lena took up reading. She started with novels she received as a birthday present. She then borrowed books from the library and began reading them immediately upon arriving home from school, stopping only when called for dinner. After dinner, she would go right back to reading. Rita was concerned at the amount of time Lena was spending alone, but she was glad that her daughter finally had the energy to do something other than grieve her father's absence. Besides, she too liked to read, and she saw in Lena's love of reading something of her own genes. Lena began using her birthday and Christmas money to buy books. She loved a series of fantasy novels that chronicled the adventures of a group of young friends who stumbled upon magical hats inside a thrift store. The hats enabled them to exit reality and create a new one, like the holodeck on the Star Trek. The series author had a vivid imagination and a powerful gift for storytelling. One novel centered on the group discovering buried treasure and using it to buy airplanes, massive playhouses filled with games, a zoo, etc., etc. In another novel, they went back in time to be present at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, secretly adding their names to those of other signatories, which then became immortalized in history. The ability of the characters to create whatever reality they desired enthralled Lena. That was just what she wanted, to escape her current life and create a new one. She read through the series, reread them a second time, and then a third. Lena daydreamed about going back in time when her father still lived at home. I've just noticed that the microphone might be too high. Only I had a complaint at church, after church. A lady that is a reader said she couldn't hear me, but the lady near me and my friend said they could, so I'm not sure. So I've moved it down. I've taken one layer off in case you can't hear me properly. I apologise if the hearing is bad. I'll have to check it. My apologies, I'm going back to where I was. I will go back up. In another daydream, she accompanied her father with a team of scientists to Canada to save a rare species of eagle from extinction. Their job was to collect the eggs from the last known nests in the wild, to breed them in captivity. While travelling to a remote nest, they chanced upon a man from a native tribe, trapped after slipping into a ravine. He led them into a series of previously being rescued. The caverns had beautiful pools of blue, green, and red waters, each filled with unique species of fish. In Lena's alternative reality, her father had become a world-famous singer, but he only sang songs about her. She was world-famous as a result, receiving crates of fan mail each week. Some fans complimented her looks, others expressed how much they longed to be her, and still others sent gifts and asked for advice about everything from school and homework to relationships and how to become famous. World-renowned Lena and her father needed protection from the paparazzi. Actually, I think that I've cut some out by mistake. I think I should go back because I didn't mark when I changed the microphone over. I think I should go back because it would be wrong if I didn't let you hear everything. So I'll go back here. I think I'll go back a few paragraphs. The ability of the characters to create whatever reality they desired enthralled Lena. That was just what she wanted, to escape her current life and create a new one. She read through the series, reread them a second time, and then a third. Lena daydreamed about going back in time to when her father still lived at home. She imagined making a mom-proof plan with him before he left, so he could come and take her to live with him without anything stopping it. She would give him a private email address so he could contact her, which her mother did not know about and could not monitor. Lena painstakingly created fantastical daydreams. In one, she imagined her father organizing an enormous 11th birthday party at which musicians sang Lena-themed songs and poets recited Lena-themed poetry. The party took place on an ocean marina her father now owned, complete with a dolphin nursery he had named after her. In another daydream, she accompanied her father with a team of scientists to Canada to save a rare species of eagle from extinction. Their job was to collect the eggs from the last known nests in the wild to breed them in captivity. While travelling to a remote nest, they chanced upon a man from a native tribe trapped after slipping into a ravine. He led them into a series of previously unknown stalactite and stalagmite-filled caverns in gratitude for being rescued. The caverns had beautiful pools of blue, green, and red waters, each filled with unique species of fish. In Lena's alternative reality, her father had become a world-famous singer, but he only sang songs about her. She was world-famous as a result, receiving crates of fan mail each week. Some fans complimented her looks, others expressed how much they longed to be her, and still others sent gifts and asked for advice about everything from school and homework to relationships and how to become famous. World-renowned Lena and her father needed protection from paparazzi. They became masters of disguise and employed a team of professional actors and undercover security agents who facilitated their sneaking into the next live show her father was to perform. Lena lost herself in creating fantasies, and it felt to her that she lived through each one, experiencing even smells and sounds. At first, Lena wrote out the details so that nothing would be forgotten, but she soon discovered she could relive a particular episode whenever she desired and modify it with new information and experiences. Before, Lena had read to escape reality, but now she stopped reading altogether. She obtained that escape from the stories she was creating in her mind. Rita was still fuming about Lena's absence from the school picture. She called the school and demanded to know why she had not been notified of her daughter's absence on picture day. The school's records showed Lena as present the whole day. Rita then inquired with Lena's homeroom teacher. She recalled seeing Lena in the auditorium during the photo taking and even remembered Lena's dress. Lena had a dentist's appointment, so Rita picked her up from school. It was a tension-filled drive, with each still smarting from the confrontation about the school picture. Once they arrived at the office, Lena sat in one of the empty waiting room chairs while her mother reported her daughter's arrival to the receptionist. While standing at the counter, Rita looked at the receptionist's security monitor, displaying a live video of the waiting room. She saw herself standing in front of the counter, but Lena was nowhere to be seen. All the chairs were empty. Believing Lena had bolted, Rita turned around, ready to bound for the door, when, to her astonishment, she saw her daughter sitting in the same chair as before. Lena looked relaxed, with her eyes closed, and a slight smile was on her face. Puzzled, Rita turned to look at the security monitor again, but the dental assistant, who had just stepped into the waiting room, called Lena for her visit. Lena got up out of her chair and walked into the examination room. Rita followed. On the drive home, they stopped to pick up takeout for dinner. When they arrived at the house, Lena wanted to shower before eating. Rita placed the food in the oven to keep it warm, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat in the living room next to Mike. Then she heard a piercing yell. "Where the hell is it?" Lena screamed from upstairs. "What did you do with it?" "What are you talking about?" Rita called out with a start. "My bath towel! It's not here, damn it!" Lena screamed. "I put it in the wash this morning, and don't use that tone with me," Rita retorted, as she started walking upstairs to confront her daughter. "You have no right to touch anything of mine," Lena roared back. "My dad gave me that towel," she added. "Don't ever touch it again." Just then Mike joined them. "Lena, stop acting like a brat and be kind to your mother for once," he admonished. "Get lost, jerk," Lena fired back. She closed her eyes and leaned against the bathroom wall. Her mother was about to raise her voice when the anger left Lena's face, replaced by a look of total relaxation. A slight smile began to form on her face. Then faintly Rita heard Lena say, "Hi, Daddy." "Lena," Rita called. "Lena, look at me." Lena's face remained transfixed. Rita found her sudden change in demeanour creepy, and she turned toward Mike with a bewildered look. But Mike was looking at the mirror over the bathroom sink. "Michael?" Rita called. Without taking his eyes off the mirror, Mike lifted his hand and pointed to it. Rita looked in the direction of his finger. All three of them were standing in the bathroom. The mirror, however, only displayed reflections of Mike and herself. There was no reflection of Lena. Unnerved, Rita called out Lena's name, which produced no response. She put her hand on Lena's shoulder to give her a shake. Without the slightest change in her expression, Lena shoved her mother. Rita flew out of the bathroom and crashed into a desk that stood in the hallway. Mike stepped toward Lena and she punched him so hard that he fell windlass to the floor. It was minutes before he could even stand up. Lena stood in the same place in the bathroom, transfixed and smiling. Mike was stunned. The force of Lena's punch was beyond that of which a 13-year-old girl was capable, far beyond. It was as hard a hit as any he had ever taken, and he had grown up with 4 brothers. He stood and attempted to lift Rita, who was whimpering and favouring her left hip, which had hit the desk's corner. Rita was unable to stand. Her hip was fractured, and she would be unable to walk for weeks. The punch Mike received herniated his abdomen and necessitated surgery. For her part, Lena acted as if nothing had occurred, and when asked about it, claimed she did not recall the violence, but only the confrontation about the towel. Rita knew something was not right with Lena. She feared Lena might react violently again. She was now afraid of her daughter. 2 weeks later, while Rita was still convalescing after hip surgery, she heard Lena arrive home from school as she sat in the living room. "Sweetie," Rita called out. "Sweetie, can you please bring me some water? I need to take my pain pills." A moment later, Lena arrived with a glass of water. "Thank you, sweetie," Rita said. "How was your day?" Rita asked. "Fine," Lena replied as she began to walk away. "Can we chat a moment, Lena?" her mother asked. I've lots to do." "Lena, please sit down," Rita said. "I just want to ask you a couple of questions." Lena remained standing. "The day of my accident, you said that your bath towel was a gift from your father." "It was." "But that's impossible," Rita replied. "Your father lives on the other side of the country." "He comes to see me," Rita replied. "He picks me up and takes me places every day." Lena looked baffled at her mother's look of incomprehension. "What do you mean?" "He comes to see me. He comes here. Yes, and he takes me where he lives. Rita was at a loss. She did not want to say anything that would set off Lena's temper. Mystified, all Rita could think to say was, "What's it like to see him?" "Oh, it's wonderful," Lena answered. "He takes me to different places and I've met so many new people. I just love living with him." Living with him? My baby's lost her mind, Rita thought to herself, grief-stricken. As much as she tried to prevent it, a tear ran down her cheek. Anxious to not appear upset at what was evident happiness for Lena, Rita said, "I miss seeing him," almost gagging on the words, but hoping the tear might pass for sorrow at Dave's 3-year absence. "You do?" Lena replied, astonished. "I do," Rita answered. "How does he look?" she added. Sitting down in the easy chair across from her mother, Lena replied, "He looks wonderful. He's writing the best music ever. He has a band. He sings in that." Lena wanted to cry. Her baby was mentally ill, and this realization caused terrible anguish inside her, sending tears down her cheeks as she listened to her daughter's accounts of her father's non-existent visits. Rita silently turned to God in the most earnest prayer she had ever managed. "Dear Lord, help my baby. Please help her. Please heal her." "Stop that!" Lena yelled. "I can't help crying, baby," Rita answered. "It's not your crying," barked Lena. "Then what?" "What you were doing." "What was I doing?" Rita asked. Lena was silent. After the pause got awkward but unsure of what made Lena displeased, Rita said, "I'm sorry, Lena. I'm just upset. Please continue." Lena began to relate a nonsensical experience in the most elaborate detail. As she did so, Rita planned to get Lena a referral to a mental health specialist, thinking, maybe if we intervene in time, Lena can snap back to her normal self. She began to pray again silently. "Oh, please, God, she's been through so much. Please don't let this happen. Please heal her." "Stop that!" Lena screamed. "Stop what?" "You were praying." Rita was dumbfounded. She wondered why praying bothered Lena, but more than that, she wondered how Lena even knew she was praying. Something Rita occasionally did, but never openly. "I'm sorry, sweetie," Rita replied. "Go on with your story." Rita listened attentively to Lena's relating of her imaginary experiences, trying to appear more attentive, to mask what she was honestly thinking. She tried to express interest in Lena's stories and delight in hearing the details. Here and there, Rita even asked a question of clarification or two to show she was paying close attention. Excuse me, I have a cold, sorry. Oh, sorry. When Rita was confident she had proved her attentiveness without changing her body language, she began silently reciting a Hail Mary. "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen." And then they're swearing. I told you not to do that!" Lena shouted as she picked up a vase and threw it against the mantel, smashing it to bits. She then stormed out of the front door. But the mother had been saying it silently. Rita was shocked and wondered how Lena identified the exact moment she was praying 3 times. It is as if her daughter could read her mind. Mental illness doesn't cause that, she thought. But Rita called her parish priest, who subsequently put her in touch with Father Carlos, because many of Lena's symptoms appeared to be consistent with mental illness, periods of disassociation from reality, vivid hallucinations that have no extra mental reality, sudden outbursts of violent rage, all beginning after the period of depression following her father's leaving. Father Carlos asked her mother to take Lena to a psychologist for a mental assessment. Sure enough, Lena was diagnosed with psychosis, a condition in which a person cannot differentiate the real from the imagined. The doctor wrote a thorough report that assessed Lena's symptoms scientifically. However, there were symptoms the psychologist could not explain. The first was the strength behind Lena's attack on her mother and stepfather. Lena gave her mother a push from a standing position. She had no running start, and the momentum sent her mother flying out of the room. Lena weighed 87 pounds, while Rita weighed almost twice that at 162 pounds. Likewise, the punch Mike received, which ulcerated his stomach, was delivered without any wind-up, yet it sent a fit 205-pound man to the emergency room. The other unexplained symptom was Lena's ability to know when her mother was secretly praying. While it is sometimes possible to accurately guess what someone is thinking, there is no natural way Lena could know all 3 times the precise moment her mother engaged in silent prayer. There was also no reason why her response should be one of instant fury. Thus, even though Lena was diagnosed with mental illness, an assessment by an exorcist was warranted. Rita and Mike brought Lena to see me on a Saturday afternoon, said Father Carlos. Lena was cooperative and answered each question Father asked straightforwardly. By this time, she had seen the psychologist for 2 months, and she had accepted that she had mental illness. He had convinced her it was unreasonable to believe her experiences were real and that they were common signs of psychosis. He did this by breaking down Lena's hallucinations into their parts. He pointed out that her experiences were always preceded by a burst of anger and resentment brought on by her father's absence, and usually directed toward the cause of his leaving. Her mother, Lena, had reported a second sensation that followed the anger, mild pleasure, that steadily increased until it became so intense and euphoric that Lena felt powerless to resist it. When she consented to it, an act she described as letting it take over, Lena would suddenly find herself living a false experience with her dad, but one that felt so real she took it for reality. In time, she discovered she no longer required anger as a springboard to enter this delusional state, but could cause it directly just by willing it. Allowing the psychologist to examine Lena helped, because by the time Father Carlos met with her, she already knew her experiences were hallucinations. The psychologist proved to her that these three occurrences, the losing of her temper, the euphoric feeling, and her consenting to that feeling, were manifestations of an abnormal mental state. He noted, for example, how there was no time lapse between her consent and the beginning of a new experience with her father. She would be in her home one moment and then on the other side of the country the next, with no travel in between. While her episodes were so vivid that Lena took them for reality, the psychologist made her realize that she never physically left the place where she was before the hallucination began. In other words, her father was not visiting her and taking her to where he lived. Lena came to accept that and recognized there was something wrong with her belief that he did. This meant that Lena was still rational and not delusional, even though she was prone to occasional psychotic hallucinations. What Father Carlos had to discover was whether there was anything demonic affecting her. As he mentioned, prayer is the surest way to find out. He explained that to Lena, that he wanted to ensure that her hallucinations were due to psychosis alone and not to anything demonic. To that end, he asked her whether it was okay for him to pray with her, asking God to remove anything that was not of him from her life, especially if it was present in these experiences. She agreed, and Father Carlos asked her permission to place his hand on her head as he prayed. She again agreed, but he only got as far as standing up when she shouted, "Get away from me, you pervert!" Lena screamed as she shot out of her chair. "Stay away from me!" Lena had a demon. Just anticipating his moving closer was enough to cause the manifestation. And she swore. "Out of here," snarled Lena as she headed toward the door. And Father Carlos said, "In the name of Jesus, I command you, demon, to stop harassing Lena and to depart from her. Lena, sit back down in the chair." The look on Lena's face suddenly changed from one of contempt and disgust back to the neutral appearance of the 13-year-old with whom Father Carlos was speaking moments earlier. She turned around and started walking back to her chair, but her feet would no longer move. It was as if they had become glued to the floor, even while the rest of her body was still moving forward. Amazingly, Although the bottom of Lena's feet was still flat on the floor, her body was leaning forward at a 45-degree angle, with her head only some 3 feet off the floor. She turned her head up to look at Father Carlos and screamed, "What's happening to me?" "Demon," I called out, "in the name of Jesus, I command you to unbind her feet," said Father. Lena fell to the floor, her face once again contorted, and her eyes rolled into her head, so that only the whites were visible. "The pig is mine," the demon derided. "She gave herself to me. Her baptism made her a daughter of God the Father." I replied. Father Carlos said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, Saviour of the world and Son of that same Father, I command you and any like you to depart from her." "Go something yourself, priest," the demon belted. "I'm her father. She asked me to be her father." Father Carlos said, "Only because you deceived her, and for doing that God will increase your punishment." "Yeah, you priest, the pig is mine. She'll have lots of fathers in hell, as many as she wants." Father Carlos reached into his bag and pulled out a relic of Saint Joseph, the foster father of Jesus. It contains a fragment from a piece of his clothing, his cloak, venerated from ancient times in the Basilica of Saint Anastasia in Rome. Father Carlos placed it up against the back of Lena's head. The demon howled, "Get him off me! Get him off me!" The next title, Healing from All Manner of Wounds. Lena needed 8 exorcism sessions before she was free of the demon, who confessed in the 3rd session that he entered her shortly after her father left, when she abandoned all hope of ever being happy. Anyone would be depressed at losing one's father. Still, Lena's prolonged state of depression was demon-induced, and it was all part of a plan to make the deceptive euphoria of her hallucinatory experiences that much more convincing. Lena's liberation required a 4-part healing process. The first part was that she had to accept that her father had abandoned her, which was difficult and traumatic. But once she recognized that her experiences were hallucinations, the cold reality of her father's decision became obvious. Though it caused her tremendous anguish, she accepted it as reality. The second part was that Lena needed to forgive her mother for the defects, actual and imagined, that she held against her. She had to accept her perception of her mother as inaccurate and her anger as unjustified. The third part was that Lena needed to forgive herself for having a father who abandoned her. While objectively speaking, she committed no wrong. The human psyche is peculiar. It will often hold itself responsible for the misfortunes and disappointments that come its way, even though it had nothing to do with causing them. Lena had to release herself from the symptoms she felt at having a father who coldly abandoned her, including thinking that his abandonment and subsequent lack of communication was somehow her fault, believing that if she had been a better person, he would never have left, believing that she was worthless. Finally, Lena had to claim her identity as a daughter of God and renounce having accepted the demon who deceivingly presented himself as her father. Lena's mental illness made this a challenge. When reality became difficult, psychotic imaginings made her naturally gravitate to disassociation. Yet, the fact that the demon entered Lena proved she had enough psychological and moral freedom to choose a lie. When hallucinating, she knew at least partially that she was exiting reality. For example, the go-getter personality her father exhibited within her hallucinations was different from how he had always conducted himself. Her opting for this lie, a father who dramatically changed for no reason, was a door by which a demon accessed her. Lena may struggle with schizophrenic hallucinations her whole life and will fight the temptation to exit reality when life gets difficult. Lena remains for Father Carlos one of the starkest cases of someone who became possessed because of a traumatic wound. Hers is a textbook case of how the Church's ministry of exorcism and the psychological sciences can work together to resolve an unfortunate person's suffering. That's why it's very wrong when people make accusations, even against this exorcist priest. They make trouble where there is none because of personal reasons, or they just dislike, or they're agents of the devil. They're either for God or the devil. There's no in between. And then they have the priests are put up for, if a priest does something wrong, yes, he must go to court, he must go to prison. But if he's just attacked for doing the work that he does and there's no basis to that, then it's really, really bad. We need to pray for priests. So I'm going to continue this. We're nearly at the end of this story. The girl not in the mirror. So we're looking back now at this case. So why did Lena's image not show up in her class photo, the monitor at the dentist's office, and the bathroom mirror? In other words, what made Lena disappear from those photographs? Demons can manipulate the physical world. While a demon cannot remove a person from the physical reality, he can manipulate light. Sight is possible because light serves as a medium of physical reality. When we see a tree, for example, what is visible is the light reflected off the tree. In the case of Lena, the demon manipulated the light she reflected, preventing her image from appearing in the class photo, the dentist's video monitor, and the bathroom mirror. The second issue, still unresolved, is why the demon produced that particular phenomenon. Her lack of reflection, since it is the very thing that led to his expulsion, Mike's observation that Lena did not cast a reflection in the mirror that had led to the violence that ultimately ended with her receiving an exorcism. The question is more difficult to answer. Exorcists often find it challenging to understand why a demon acted in this manner rather than another, or what the purpose of this phenomenon might be. It was only after some years that Father felt confident in explaining the disappearance of her image. His explanation requires understanding what the demon was trying to do with Lena. Demonic activity flows from the sordidness of a demon's will. Lena's demon was out to destroy her. He fought first to have her believe, through her father's abandonment and what she perceived as an overbearing mother and a cold, distant stepfather, that she was forever condemned to misery. The evidence is the debilitating depression she experienced after her father left. She was hopeless and empty. Then the demon offered Lena a way out. He facilitated a fantasy world where she could produce her own reality. While the fantasy world brought her out of depression, she became dependent on entirely illusory experiences. These two moves were designed to get Lena to change her belief about reality. If the demon could alter her perception of the real, he could control her, which he did. The ultimate expression of that control was to make Lena's very image disappear. Her image was not showing up, was the demon proudly boasting, "Lena's not here anymore, I've got her somewhere else." Why would the demon risk his plan's success by causing her image not to appear, since that is what indicated his presence? That is an example of a demon's broken nature. Just as a person who is in a blinding rage or is severely intoxicated is intellectually blinded, so demons are often blinded by their own vices and rage. Lena's demon was executing an effective plan, but he was too prideful, arrogant, and smug to keep it discreet. He could not resist proclaiming his machinations as if he were already raising a hand in final victory. St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the greatest theologians who ever lived, described one of sin's main effects as follows: concupiscence darkens the intellect. Put simply, sin makes you stupid. Lena's impetuous demon proves Aquinas' point. The demon's bragging prevented the success of what Father Carlos believed was the third part of the demonic plan. Had the demon remained in Lena, he would have dragged her deeper into the world of illusion. Then, after she was entirely dependent on it, emotionally and mentally, he would collapse the fantasy and expose everything Lena treasured as the worthless product of make-believe. That challenge would be more crushing than even her father's leaving, producing abject hopelessness. The demon's goal would then be to convince Lena to take her life. After the demon's eviction, Lena's image appeared normally in mirrors and on screens, just as before she had become possessed. Finally, the job of the exorcist is to discover the rights the devil has gained that enable him to attach to his victim. Once he knows the demonic rights, the exorcist can aid the victim in rescinding them. This annulling of rights is what freed Lena from the monster who was afflicting her. It's also what frees everyone who is suffering from the same. Lena's liberation was greatly aided by the work of a very skilled psychologist whose scientific training identified detrimental wounds in her psyche. The therapy he provided for her for these wounds, supplied in conjunction with the exorcism ministry she was receiving from Father Carlos, facilitated her liberation. While it is common today to hear of the alleged incompatibility between science and faith, in Father Carlos's experience, the truths of faith and science are and were harmonious. The same God gave each of them both gifts, so one does not contradict the other any more than God can be in contradiction with himself. So he's saying that the experts in these fields complemented and helped one another. In exorcism, science and faith work harmoniously to bring about liberation from people who this occurs to. While faith of its nature is above reason, any perceived disassociation between them does a disservice to the victim and risks leaving him or her bereft of lasting healing. I'm not going to do the foreword because I've noticed that this has taken 1 hour 7 minutes 35 seconds, so I'm actually going to end it here. It was, I would say, out of all of the 4 chapters that I've done, I personally have enjoyed this the most. When I say enjoyed, it's rare. It's very, very unusual. I know about a lot of exorcists, and I've known them years. I've not had an exorcism, but I know their work. I've been involved in prayer warriors and stuff. But this has fascinated me the most. I would say that I've learned a lot from reading this. It's something I didn't know before. So I'm looking forward to doing chapter 6 sooner than I sort of had gaps in between. But now I've done that, I'm wondering what's coming next now. So I might learn something else that I didn't know. I certainly didn't know about this type of need for exorcism. It's very, very good. It's very eye-opening. So I hope you enjoy it as well. I'm going to close off now. Wish you all good night. Thank you for listening, and I'm glad I did that one. Yeah, I shall be eager to do the next one now because I found it very, very interesting. It was very different from some that I know about. God bless you and good night. I'll try and upload it now.